welcome to another episode of the Tea Time. Today we have a very special guest with us in the studio who is the first time parliamentarian from Milton East and Halton Hill South, Kristina Tesser Derksen. Let's welcome her. Kristina, how are you today?
I'm well, thank you so much.
Kristina, I am going to ask you a few questions. You have been councillor multiple times in Milton. You have been MP now for last few months. But before we talk about your political career, let's talk about you. Who is Kristina Tesser?
Oh, thank you. I was born and raised in Milton, just down the street from where we are right now. My father was an immigrant from Italy who came here as a child refugee from the Second World War. My mom, several generations in Canada, grew up in Parry Sound, like Muskoka area, cottage country. And she was a nurse. Dad was a truck driver. They're both retired now. And I've been married to my husband for 29 years. And we have 4 children who are young adults. And my daughter just got married last month.
Oh,
yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Yeah,
You
we're very
had
happy.
a very busy year, I'm assuming.
It's a very busy year, yes. And it's still not over. We're
It's-
just over the halfway point, right?
Wow.
Yeah. So as far as education goes, I went to school in Milton and then I went and got my diploma to be a funeral director. So I worked in funeral service for several years in Georgetown and in Milton. And then I decided that I wanted to proceed professionally, and I decided I wanted to be a lawyer. So I went to university to get my undergraduate degree at the University of Toronto, Mississauga, and I got into law school at the University of Toronto Faculty of Law. And this was after I had my 4 kids. So I was going to law school with 4 little kids, and God bless my husband. Thank goodness for him and all the support we had with our family nearby. So I was successful and practiced law. I'm now in my 12th year of practicing law.
Oh, that is amazing. Very busy with 4 kids, and then you still had the energy to go to school, get your law degree, and then practice it. That's amazing. Kristina, what made you go into politics, municipality? What made you think, okay, now I need to work for the public, you want to be involved in public service? What made you do it, and how was your experience so far?
Well, I've always had an interest kind of philosophically about politics, right? My undergraduate degree was in political science and history. So I've always been fascinated about how people organize themselves in societies, politically speaking. And as far as the public service element, I thought about this a lot, and I saw a pattern in my careers that they were always helping professions, right? In funeral service, prior to that in high school, I worked in long-term care. And even in law, it's a people-facing profession where people are coming to you with problems. You're always solving problems and trying to help, right? And so politics is very similar. I mean, you're trying to address problems, you're helping people always, it's very front-facing, and you're trying to make things better. You're improving things, you're improving people's way of life. So there's a natural progression, a theme through all those careers, I found. And so when my youngest son turned 13, I thought, okay, when all the kids are teenagers, maybe I'll look at actually getting involved in an election. Right. I'll try running. So in 2018, he turned 13, and that same summer, I found out that there was municipal elections happening. So after talking to my husband, I reached out to some local politicians who I just kind of knew of, and they gave me their rundown, and I said, do you think it's something I could do with my background and personality? And they said, absolutely, go for it. And I was successful. And funny enough, at the time, I was kind of naive because I was going up against an incumbent who had been in her role for about 23 years.
Wow.
And at the time, I didn't realize how difficult it is to, unseat an incumbent politician. But we were successful. And, to be honest, I didn't really know what I was doing when I started, but I had wonderful people come out.
I've been talking to a lot of politicians, a lot of people who have been involved in campaigns and whatnot, but they said municipal election is one of the toughest one. It might have been more difficult than running for provincial or federal. Was your experience the same pretty much?
Yes and no, and I'll tell you why. Because in municipal politics, there's no parties. So you don't
Right.
have that party support with, a platform that you can rely on or different types of resources that you can
Or
turn
the
to.
baggage you're carrying from the
That's
party.
right. That's the other side, right?
Yeah,
It's easier in some ways because you are the product. You are trying to convince people that you alone are going to do the best job you can, and you don't have to defend a party. You don't have to defend a platform that you didn't create. So in that way, it's a little bit easier. So it really depends on the context that you're campaigning in municipally and what's going on with the issues in your ward.
Ask you a question from non-political side. Having 4 kids, I have 3, and they're very competitive with each other. You have to solve their problems and who's right, who's wrong. Doesn't it take a toll on you? You're doing the same thing pretty much in in house and in your personal life, and then going into politics as well. That's a lot of pressure there, no?
Yeah, well, I mentioned my wonderful husband, who's very helpful with that sort of thing.
That's amazing.
And you know, children do have an innate sense of justice. So you're right. You know, they
Yeah,
feel
exactly.
really incensed when something doesn't go their way. So there's always teaching opportunities there. And my kids, again, saw me going through school. They saw me learning law. They saw me articling at my law firm and going into court. So they grew up, you know, seeing me kind of in these roles where I'm trying to help people achieve justice or trying to find what justice means to different people. So they've kind of grown up with that a little bit. And again, you know, my kids are older now, so they're much less labor intensive. My youngest is now 20 years old. So
Wow.
It's a whole different set of worries and concerns, and they get a little more expensive. But that being said, they don't quite need me around as much as they did when they were little.
From my personal experience, what's the toughest age for kids? Teenager, people say when they're teenagers, that's the most difficult one.
I think the reason parents say that teenagers are the most difficult or the most worrisome is because the challenges they're facing in the world are much more serious, right?
That's
like
true.
you're talking about like big issues. You know, first of all, they're driving, and then everybody worries about their kids driving, and they're being faced with, you know, drugs and alcohol and
They're
temptations
exposed to the
like
social-
that. That's
social
right.
culture of the
That's
life. Okay.
right.
Yeah.
So I think that's where parents worry a lot, and there's, you know, there's opportunists, unfortunately, who would take advantage of kids if they're not kind of, you know,
Yeah.
living out the values that their parents have instilled in them. So I think that's where it comes back to parenting. When you feel confident in the values you've instilled in your children, and they feel that they can come to you with issues, and that you won't be judgmental, but you're going to tell them the way it has to be. You know, it's
Yep.
the parents remain an island. So the kids swim out and they come back and the island is still there, and they know that there's stability and certainty there.
That's true. I'm gonna jump back to a little bit of your political career. 2 successful terms as a Milton councillor, and I have been talking to a lot of people, especially, and I'm going to be honest about it. I am from a Pakistani diaspora. I've been involved in Pakistani community a lot, and Milton has a very high percentage of Pakistani diaspora. So you have a very good feedback coming from the people. So what made you decide that you need to step up in the ladder of government and go towards federal?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it's not something I went looking for, I will say. So
Okay.
I didn't quite serve out 2 full terms in my municipal career
Right.
because I was approached recently to run in the federal election. And really at the time I was kind of enjoying municipal politics and enjoying the fact that there weren't parties that we had to align with. But when I was approached originally to run for the provincial election back in June to run in the by-election, I thought, no, I'm not ready for party politics right now. I'll stick with my municipal career. And then I thought about it a lot for months. Like, what was I afraid of? What was it that was holding me back from that? So when I was approached to run federally in the context that Canada found itself and continues to find itself with the economic threats from the United States, challenges to our very sovereignty.
That phase, huh?
Yeah, somebody thought, okay, I would be good to represent a new riding,
Of course.
and you're asked to stand up and serve for your country in a political capacity, and it's hard to say no to that. So I said yes. You know, if people have faith in me, I will step up and do my best.
So let's talk about that tough phase, because I was very much involved in the election, especially in this riding. We are in the same riding. What challenges did you face coming from a municipality background to federal? I know there was a lot of competition within the party because, of course, Liberal is one of the greatest party. It's been in government for a long time now, so people do want to come forward as a candidate. Within the party and outside the party, once you were confirmed as a candidate, what other challenges did you face?
Well, of course, Georgetown, where we are now, is typically or has been a conservative riding for a very
non-liberal
long time.
county, for
Yeah,
sure.
non-liberal. Very diplomatic.
Yeah.
So that was a challenge,
Yeah.
and even though I worked in Georgetown for several years, and all my children were born in Georgetown Hospital, and I have lots of friends here, people didn't know me as well in Georgetown as they did in Milton. So
Of
that
course.
was some. And the biggest challenge was that I really only had 5 weeks to get out. And
Oh, yeah,
and,
what-
and have everybody, you know, meet me, right, and to introduce myself to the community.
I am going to talk about the result, but when you said 5 weeks, did you actually, were you confident that you're actually going to win? Because 5 weeks is not enough time for any politician.
Yeah, it's without sounding overly confident, because that can be dangerous too. I felt really good about our chances because I know the riding, I know the communities. I'm from here, I've lived here. And I had so much confidence in Mark Carney, like in our leader who came forward with such an impressive background, such an incredible resume, real world experience, private sector, public sector.
Of course.
And that's where really I think a lot of us candidates in the Liberal Party drew a lot of our confidence, renewed confidence and new confidence for newcomers like me.
Yeah, when we're talking about Honorable Prime Minister, of course, Brexit is one of the highlight which were talked about in the election too. But let me be fair and honest here. We talked about major political party having a baggage. There was a lot of negative feedback for Prime Minister Trudeau, and it was very difficult campaign. Was it? Did you find it hard answering people question when they were talking about economical policies around Mr. Trudeau?
Surprisingly, we didn't have too much of that.
Okay.
I actually had more of that during the provincial campaign, believe it or not.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I think that was because previous Prime Minister Trudeau, had not announced yet that he was resigning. So he was still in power. It seemed like he was still going to run. So in the provincial election, we had people saying, "You're a Liberal? Oh, what about Justin Trudeau?" And then there's an opportunity to educate people that there are separate levels of government, but not everybody wanted to hear that. So yeah, there were challenges. There were still people who asked during the federal campaign about Justin Trudeau, and my answer, quite honestly, was I was not in the Liberal Party serving under Justin Trudeau, so I can't answer for a lot of the decisions that were made. But people sometimes forget all the good that's done too,
of course.
Right? I mean, there really was a lot of good that happened in the past 10 years, and there comes a time for every political party and every political leader where it's time to, pass the torch, so to speak. So I think once Justin Trudeau resigned and the Liberal Party held the election for the new leader, and we confirmed that Mark Carney was going to be the leader and was the Prime Minister in the interim, it really changed the landscape significantly, which is reflected in the polls that we saw and the total turnaround in the numbers and support.
That's very true. I mean, I really need to put this out. So 5 weeks of election, I'm going back to it, 5 weeks of campaigning. What was the biggest challenging? Because you have to develop the teams in different areas. You have to make sure that you are doing the canvassing right. You have to make sure you've been talking to different people. And of course, I have noticed this as well within our diaspora as well. You're supporting the same party or same narrative at the end, but you still can have difference of opinions. And that's when they come to you and talk about it, two different groups of people supporting you, asking you having difference of opinions. How do you handle it? Did you face any such problems here as well?
Yeah, well, I drew on my skills as a mom of four. Lots of differing opinions from the kids.
That's true.
But in all seriousness, but that's part of representation, right?
Course.
I mean, you have to balance interests, and sometimes there's conflicting interests. And I came across this a lot when I was a municipal councillor. I represented a ward that was geographically extremely large and included a very large rural portion, and also included the old part of downtown Milton, with Main Street and all the downtown businesses, an industrial portion. And there were many different interests going on there, and trying to bridge that gap sometimes between the concerns of our rural constituents and the concerns of downtown businesses or urban constituents or newcomers in the new development in the south part of the ward. A lot of opinions on how the town should develop and where we should be putting our resources. So I was already doing that in a municipal context on kind of a microcosm.
You had a good background.
Yeah. So when we move into, the issues get bigger or different federally, more broad, but really the principles are the same. You have people who ultimately we all have the same goal. We want a successful, prosperous, safe country.
Right.
We just have differing opinions about how we get there, right? And when you get into the granularity of different policies or what kind of goal you're trying to achieve, or what group needs the most help right now, that's sometimes where you get conflicting opinions. And ultimately the job of a representative is to bring all those opinions in some kind of homogenous presentation to the government
You got to
And
grab
see-
that opinion and make sense of to the general public. I mean, in layman language, people need to understand. That being said, I think, and I personally had a lot of this issue when people are asking questions which are beyond the powers of municipal and below the power of federal, which is provincial, which is provincial problems. For example, education system and whatnot. Just giving it as an example. How do you handle it when people ask you a question which, as a federal parliament member, you cannot do anything about?
I'm very honest with people, first of all. And again, I got to go back to the municipal experience. I had knocked doors in municipal campaigns where people were asking me about immigration. And I would have to say, thanks for the question. It's completely within the federal jurisdiction. However, I can try to answer your question and I can direct you to the person who would be best to answer it.
Right.
And same federally, when folks contact us about municipal or provincial issues, there's a saying in politics, there's one taxpayer, right? I mean, we don't care necessarily where the answer comes from. We just want the answer from someone with authority or point us in the right direction where we can find the information. So that's what we try to do at the federal level. My staff is excellent at this. We'll get emails about all kinds of different things and they will say, just as an opportunity for learning, this is actually a jurisdiction of the province, for example. Here's your MPP's email address. You can contact him. In fact, the other day I emailed the MPP myself and I copied the constituents so that we were all in the same chain, and I put the constituent's question into a summary for the MPP so he'd be able to read it easier and get an answer back. So regardless of the parties, we're all elected to represent together, and there's no reason why the federal, provincial, municipal partners can't get along for the best interest of the constituents and the people living in our ridings.
Of course, so everybody is working for the country, Canada, and the Canadians. That being said, now, before end of the first part of our podcast, I am going to ask you a question which I'm very curious about. Election results. The day of election result in your riding, it kept flipping.
Yeah.
I saw different reactions around Georgetown, around your constituency, even in Milton. What was your reaction? What was the reaction of the family? I think everybody wants to know that.
Yeah, the first word that comes to mind when I think of election night is nauseous. I was out knocking doors till about 9 o'clock, right until the polls closed. And then my campaign managers very wisely said, Kristina, go home, get changed, have a shower, grab something to eat and meet us back at, the headquarters that we decided we were going to have for election night. So when I got there and I saw the numbers and the mood was people were happy and excited, but it wasn't like a slam dunk by any stretch. And we were ahead a little bit and then we fell behind and then ahead and then further behind, a little bit ahead. So it was really, that's where the nauseous came from. I was just up and down. And later on in the night, my very good colleague, MP Adam Van Koeverden, on the west side of Milton, texted me. He said, how are you doing? Because he saw the numbers. And at that point, he had clearly won.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And I said, I'm feeling nauseous. And he said, I'm coming over. So he came over and we kind of sat there for a bit. And I tried to calm my nerves and chat with people. But right around, I want to say it was midnight-ish, it appeared that it was too close to call. So Elections Canada actually they weren't able to call it. So we were that close.
But I gotta say, few of the media channels, I'm not gonna take any names, but few of the media channels announced the result. And at that point, people are asking the questions. Wait.
Yeah.
And let me be honest, a lot of WhatsApp groups here, when people are talking, even with the result which few of the channel announced, they were really happy because of the outcome they had gotten. So I saw a lot of positivity from the team working with you.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be happy people and sad people in every election, right? So on election night itself, we ended up shutting down the party and saying, sorry guys, it could be 2 a.m. before we know what the results are, everybody go home. And in fact, what happened was Elections Canada said it was too close to call. There was one poll that still had to be counted. It was a special ballot where people handwrite the name of the candidate. And there was, I think, around 2,000 votes in that poll, and we were only 500 votes apart. So that poll could have decided the winner. But Elections Canada said, we're going to bed. They'd had a long day.
Yeah, of course.
Rightfully so. They were taking a rest. So we came back the next day, and in the early afternoon, that's when they counted the last poll, and it appeared that my opponent, the Conservative candidate, had won the election by 298 votes, I want to say it was at that point.
Right.
And then it appeared we were done for this election, and I was very disappointed. But I reached out to my opponent. I said, "Congratulations, best of luck." And then I started to get on with my life again.
Oh, okay. And then suddenly somebody calls you and tells you, "Hey, Kristina,
Yeah.
you won."
Yeah.
What was the reaction then?
A little bit of disbelief. It was pretty surreal. It was a call from the returning officer, and she said that she had completed the validation process, which is a standard process. So all the polls on election night report to the returning office, and there's a tally kept, and based on those unofficial results, usually the election is called, which is what the media did, which they always do, which we expect them to do.
Okay.
And then when the returning officer went through the process to validate all those numbers that were reported, she noticed an inconsistency in the term she used, I think, was like typo or a tabulation error. And easy to do, like you're dealing with tens of thousands of ballots, and these folks have been working, day and night counting them. So a little bit of human error. And that's the point of the validation, is to catch those, and she did catch it. So that changed things, and she said you're actually ahead by 29 votes.
Yeah, I don't remember the number of votes, but I know I was following it very closely until then. That being said, I am going to ask you a few questions about how it was the transition going into Parliament, how Ottawa was, what is your plan for your riding, and we'll play a rapid fire game with you, and we'll get a message from you to the viewers, our viewers, the Canadians. But before that, we're going to cut this episode short today, and we will be coming back with another episode in a few days. But for now, that's it. This is the episode of Tea Time. Stay tuned for the next episode. See you later.